Hi. I had a question about the spell Wild Mushrooms. Currently, if it does a lot of damage if you stack 3 right on top of each other, but it has a very narrow range of 3 yards, and also the targeting reticule makes it very imprecise, so you often don't get it stacked where you want to. Do you have any plans to make it more usable or possibly disincentivize stacking it?
I don't think players have really grasped like the usefulness of the spell yet. Like in some of my dungeon runs that I've done on beta, what some of our Feral Druid tanks do, for example, is after they've done the fight once or twice, they know where some of the ads are going to spawn. So what they do is they put a mushroom at all the spawn points, and when they spawn, you can cast the detonation while you're in feral form. So you cast detonate, and all the ads just come right towards you. So that's an example of like I don't see a lot of players have really understood like that strategy for the spell yet. And the spell is kind of supposed to be when all the mushrooms are stacked on top of each other. It's supposed to be like like a lot of burst damage. You put them in front of the Warsong Tunnel or something like that. But as for spreading them out, you're probably not going to do as optimal damage, I guess. So the gameplay is kind of you're supposed to stack them up if you want to do really burst damage.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, gentlemen. Right now, I have a warrior. I'm over like close to 390 days played, and I've been thinking that it would be a cool idea to actually eventually be able to have a quest line to change, let's say, a warrior into Death Knight, or let's go a paladin into something else. And is that something you guys have ever thought about?
So I get where you're going with that. The risk is that we don't want to give players either, the ability or frankly the burden to feel like, oh, well, rogue damage isn't so good right now. I'm going to go do the quest and switch my rogue to a hunter or something like that. I mean, leveling is pretty easy these days, particularly for super advanced players like you guys who can go find the heirlooms and things like that. So it's not that hard to get as many high-level characters as you really need.
It was more about that, I've played it for so long and I have so many achievements that to go and re-roll a new one would be kind of a pain in the butt. But I understand what you guys are saying.
I totally get you on the achievements, and we would love, and I hope someday we're able to do this technically, is to be able to give you achievements that you earn on one character to either apply to every character or at least be able to see the other achievements, because we understand that gets in the way of alts.
Thank you. One more question. It's for my guild leader and my brother. Currently, I believe Druid healing at 85. They're running out of mana real fast. And for my brother, Paladin healing at the later levels is not as potent, but they have seem to have a lot of mana at the time at 85.
We've tweaked both of those a lot lately. I think the Holy Paladin single target healing is pretty potent now at 85.
Thank you, gentlemen.
I guess I have to make a new question again. Both of them have been answered, but this one's for rogues. I guess it's about Banner's Guile. What's your guys' intent with that? It seems to be maybe like you do one finishing move on one and do another later, but right now it kind of looks like damage is low on, like, say, a Rupture, so you only really eviscerate still. And it also seemed to kind of take away from the target swapping that combat had by actually giving it some kind of real lead up. So what's the intent there?
The intent is for it to be when you're on a single target for a prolonged period of time, it's cyclical damage that rises, reaches its peak, stays at that peak for a while, and then resets. Encouraging and rewarding players for using their most powerful damaging abilities and other timers, cooldowns, trinkets, etc. when it's at its peak, and maybe holding off on them when it's the other end. In terms of target switching or multi-target situations, I think that with the change to Blade Flurry, combat is actually in a pretty strong place against multiple targets, and things like the new rogue ability Redirect also help when you need to switch from one target to another quickly.
All right, thanks. And also Ghostcrawler, Thunder Against Cenarius wants to let you know there's an open-ended invitation if you want to chill with us.
Right after this.
I thought you were meeting somebody after this.
I'm a busy man.
Hey, so at the CLISM panels you had last year, you talked about racials. So they're a train wreck right now. I mean, we had people in our guild that were undead mages, and when you allowed re-specking, or re-whatevering racing, haste versus underwater breathing. That's across the board between all the racials. Are you ever going to get to the point where we have a consistent activated DPS ability, a passive that's useful for each, and whatever else? Right now, they're all over the board.
So, to be honest, probably not. So, the reason that I say that is because if you take that troll mage that has the activated haste into the arena, right? Now suddenly you get feared and you're just sort of stuck there going, oh man, I wish I was undead again. And different races have those different abilities. Like, yes, some are going to be better in PvE, some are going to be better in PvP, but in every place in the game, they have some fights where they're going to shine. So, no, they're not going to be the same.
At the same time, we do try to be mindful of keeping the relative power balance within a certain range. For example, the original announced Worgen racial was plus 1% to all damage. That was a quite powerful passive compared to things that some of the other races got. We changed that to bring it a bit more in line, because we also don't want to create the sense that if you aren't this race, you're doing it wrong. There are situations where certain racials are going to shine, and other situations where they won't be as helpful, but it's all part of the flavor of being that race.
Also, I wanted to say, thanks for the new tree druid form. That's actually pretty fun. It's cool.
Yikes.
Hey guys, I just want to first start off saying that I can't wait for Cataclysm to come out, man. It looks really awesome, and I can't wait to look at all the new places that's going to be there. But my question is, I play Horde, and I was wondering, can we give the Alliance goblins and worgens, and we get murlocs?
Murlocs are special to all of us. You couldn't really give them the Horde or the Alliance. Just Murlocs are special.
Thanks.
Hello, gentlemen. I'm ThreatCon off Gorfiend, guild leader of Tempest Everlasting. Again, Ghostcrawler, thank you for nerfing Paladins over and over and over again. I appreciate it.
Welcome.
Hey, we buffed them in the beta last week. So.
They're fine.
It's roughly two questions that I have for you. The Holy Power generation for Prot Paladins right now is slightly gimped for generation of threat overall. Do you have any intention of giving Judgment a guaranteed Holy Power charge, or giving us a chance on proc in the Prot tree to give us more Holy Power generation? Because red spec right now, which is my main spec, you have more things that generate random Holy Power charges, or you have the Mastery that gives you free Holy Power, so you're always constantly doing an active spell or activating a stronger ability. Do you have any clue or ideas as to fixing this problem for threat generation for Prot Paladins?
So one big trap that we want to avoid in the Prot Paladin is the idea you can try to keep Inquisition up and Holy Shield up at the same time. You can try to keep both of your finishers that buff you at the same time and then feel like that's what you have to play as. So if we give you too much Holy Power, it's actually going to make it harder to play the Paladin, because you have to play perfectly, and the guy who's not as good at it is going to be really terrible by comparison. Along the other line, some of the reasons why people think the Holy Paladin's threat is bad right now is because actually the Warrior was generating too much threat, and we fixed that last week. So your threat should be very comparable to Warrior. We've been doing a lot of tests on that to make sure they're comparable.
At the same time, we recognize that when playing a tank spec in particular, it can be very frustrating to feel like you're lacking the resources that you need to do your job. When something comes in, you need to react to it to pick it up, and the resource isn't there or the button isn't there to push, you feel like you're hamstrung in that. To that end, one of the things that we did with the initial pass on Prot Paladins was to give them a 3-second Crusader Strike, so that their overall Holy Power generation does exceed Rets in most cases. Another very recent change that we've made is to add a talent to allow Divine Plea to give you up to 3 holy power when you push it, so that you can have the equivalent of a Prot Warrior who blood rages before a pull, so they can go in and get everything to stick to them right away,
Actually,
or just have
not
that
blood
emergency
rage.
button.
Last year, Blood Rage is gone. Sorry.
Yes.
But you get Battle Shot now.
Yeah, but you can Divine Plea on a pull now and start with 3 holy power if you're a Prot Paladin.
All right. Okay, then that extends into two more questions for you. Consecration. It was basically a 12-second cooldown originally, and it fit well into a DPS rotation for Red Paladins, or it could be a nice starter and then continuation at AoE threat generation for a Prot Paladin. What was your intention on taking that to a 1-minute cooldown?
Why don't we do one more question, because there's a lot of the people behind you. But basically, we wanted Consecration to be more situational, where when you have the legendary streaming ads coming in, that's when you want to drop Consecration to try to trap them. When you have a large group you're trying to control. Once it has a very short cooldown and you can more or less use it when you want, then there's not much decision making. It's the decision is Consecrate expired? Okay, I'm going to cast it again and cast it again. We want it to be more like, is now a good time to cast it, or am I going to need it again in a few seconds from now? But at the same time, we won't balance the threat generation around having it up all the time.
We also made a conscious decision in case of Ret to try to reduce the amount of constant AoE damage coming out of their single target rotation. So that was one of the reasons for increasing the cooldown of Consecration.
Thank you, gentlemen.